Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to Stately Von Manor, where Roger and I have returned for the Robert E. Howard Show. It's the Robert E. Howard Show once again. And this week's thrill-packed episode is kind of a sequel to the show that we did last week when we were talking about this set of books. This is the set of books that ran 12 paperback volumes. It was edited by L. Sprague de Camp. It did include all of Robert E. Howard's Conan stories. However, they were edited by L. Sprague de Camp, and mixed in with those Conan stories were a bunch of pastiche Conan stories written by de Camp and Lynn Carter, as well as some Robert E. Howard stories that were not Conan stories that L. Sprague de Camp turned into Conan stories. And de Camp changed the order of the stories when he put them in these paperbacks. He used the paperbacks to tell a chronological saga of Conan's career, which was not how Robert E. Howard wrote the stories. He started off actually when Conan was king, then the next couple stories were when Conan was a young man, and then he jumped around in Conan's career. So there were some differences, and this set of books, edited by de Camp, was controversial among Robert E. Howard fans, to say the least, and remains so. And unfortunately, for the longest time, the only way you could read Robert E. Howard's original Conan stories was in this 12-volume set of paperback books. Nowadays, however, we live in a fortunate time as far as that goes, because all of Robert E. Howard's great Conan stories are available in this 3-volume set from Del Rey. So if you've never read Conan before, read this. Read Robert E. Howard's original Conan stories. This is the real stuff. It's the real thing. However, for Sumerian September this year, I am going to be reading this set of books because it's been years since I've read it. I want to reevaluate it, as a senior citizen. Now, this set of books, like I said, ran 12 volumes, but unfortunately for L. Sprague de Camp, it ended. This is the 12th volume. This is Conan of the Isles, which I remember not being very good. This is Conan when he's a senior citizen. There's Old Man Conan. Robert E. Howard's original fiction ran out a few books before this. So this is L. Sprague de Camp and Lynn Carter, I think. They're the ones who wrote this book, right? Let me see. Yeah, this is L. Sprague de Camp and Lynn Carter. So, yeah, this series ran 12 volumes, and it ended. But there was still money to be made. And L. Sprague de Camp, he wasn't done making money with Conan. So the series continued, even though chronologically Conan's story had already been told. There was more Conan yet to come. We got this set of books. This is the set of books from Bantam. This is the Bantam set of paperback books, which ran 6 volumes, 7 if you include the Conan the Barbarian movie novelization, which I really wouldn't, because the character in that movie is not the character that Robert E. Howard wrote. There were a lot of differences, but you can include it, I guess. That would make it 7, but it was really 6. And it started with this volume. This is Conan the Swordsman. And so L. Sprague de Camp and Lynn Carter decided to make another Conan book. And so what they did now, since Conan was already an old man when they left him, is they went back into Conan's career and wrote some stories that you would fit into Conan's career, as presented in that 12-volume set of books. And this has a bunch of short stories in it, I believe. Let me take a look. If memory serves, yes. So it starts off with the Conan Saga, an introduction by L. Sprague de Camp, which will get you up to speed if you're unfamiliar with the Conan stories. This is a brand new line of books from a different publisher. So he's getting you up to speed, but then there was a bunch of short stories. Legions of the Dead, The People of the Summit, and that one is by Bjorn Norberg and L. Sprague de Camp. And Norberg or Nyberg, I'm sorry, Bjorn Nyberg. He did work on L. Sprague de Camp's set of books. And so he's got some stuff in here too. The People of the Summit, Shadows of the Dark, The Star of Corolla. That one also is by Bjorn Nyberg and L. Sprague de Camp. Then we've got The Gem in the Tower, The Ivory Goddess, Moon of Blood. And then we have a glossary of Hyborian names, just in case you wanted to look up some Hyborian names. You know, maybe you're going to have a kid and you want to give them a Hyborian name. Well, then you have this cool glossary. And it's got this excellent cover. This cover is a cool fold-out cover. Who does this cover? Let me see, because I think this one actually tells me. Daryl Green painted this cover, and it is pretty cool. I don't remember much about the book, though, because it's been a long, long time since I've read this. But this is the first volume of the Bantam set of books, which continues Conan's adventures. And this set of books is kind of interesting because it's kind of the point where we go into a whole long line of pastiche novels. This is the midway point between the set of books that de Camp edited and all of those Tor books that came later. That long, long, long series of Conan novels that ran in the 80s and the 90s. This set of books ran from 1978 to 1982, if I'm remembering right. And it starts with Conan the Swordsman. The next book is a novel, and it's Conan the Liberator. Conan the Liberator, which has a really awesome cover. And this cover is by Bob Larkin. Bob Larkin did this cover. This isn't a whole fold-out thing like the other one, but it's pretty cool. That Bob Larkin cover is really awesome. This is probably my favorite cover of the set. And I believe this story, Conan the Liberator, takes place right before Conan became king. Again, it's been a long time since I've read this book. And I don't think I'm going to have time this Sumerian September to read this set of books. So maybe the following Sumerian September. I will get to them eventually because it's about time I revisit this set. So yeah, that's Conan the Liberator right there. That's the second volume in the series, and they are numbered. They are numbered. Then L. Sprague de Camp and Lynn Carter hand the reins of Conan over to Andrew Offutt. And Andrew Offutt, who wrote quite a few fantasy novels, wrote this book. This is The Sword of Skollops, Conan the Sword of Skollops. I don't know who did the cover because the next few books, they don't give you who the cover artist is, unfortunately. If you know, let me know. That would be awesome. You could put it down in the comments. But it's a great Conan cover. That could be another Bob Larkin, but maybe not. But it's another awesome fold-out cover. Look at that. That's great. Such a great cover. And so this is Andrew Offutt. I think this is Andrew Offutt's first Conan novel. I could be wrong, but I think maybe. And I don't remember it at all. Again, I'm going to have to revisit this book. Conan, The Sword of Skollops, the third book in the Bantam series. And then we get to a book I remember pretty well because it was good. And it was written by Carl Edward Wagner. Carl Edward Wagner, the great dark horror and fantasy writer, Carl Edward Wagner, who wrote the Kane series of books. If you've never read the Kane series, you should track those down. Those are really, really good dark fantasies. And they are available now as ebooks. The old paperbacks could be a little hard to track down, although they're worth it if you get your hands on them. I do believe that the Kane series, I think I heard that they're going to be reprinted soon. That would be wonderful if they were, because they should be made more available. But Carl Edward Wagner, he wrote this book, Conan, The Road of Kings. Now, Carl Edward Wagner wasn't the biggest pastiche fiction fan. He actually came out with his own competing set of Conan paperbacks that were completely unedited as far as any changes made to the text. It was exactly as it was presented in Weird Tales. And it was a 3-volume set of books. He wasn't able to reprint all the stories. But that's another good set of books. I did a video on that one, I think. I think I did. Anyway, he wrote this book, which has another fantastic fold-out cover. Look at that. That's awesome. Some pretty cool cover art on this line of books. So, Carl Edward Wagner's only Conan novel, I believe. It's the only Conan novel he did. He did some other Robert E. Howard pastiche fiction, but this is the only time he did Conan. So it's of interest just for that. Then L. Sprague de Camp returns with Conan and the Spider God. This is a novel which was only written by de Camp. I don't think, no, Lynn Carter didn't have anything to do with this one. So Conan and the Spider God. This one does not have a fold-out cover like the others. And if I'm remembering right, I think I heard that this book, which is the 5th book, actually was printed after the 6th book, which is weird. But I guess that kind of thing happens. And maybe that's why this one doesn't have a fold-out cover. I don't know. Or maybe this is just a different printing. But the cover is pretty awesome. I mean, look at that. That's great. That's such a great cover. So, Conan and the Spider God. And this might be the last book that L. Sprague de Camp wrote of Conan. This might be his last Conan story. I could be wrong. Let me know. Did he do anything after the Spider God? I don't remember. But then the last book of the set, if you don't count the movie novelization, is Conan the Rebel. Conan the Rebel. This is by Poul Anderson, who I've talked about quite recently on my last weekend reading report. I talked about Poul Anderson's The Broken Sword, which is one of the best fantasy novels I've ever read. A brilliant dark fantasy novel. So I'm really kind of interested in reading this one again. I read this one, but it was years and years ago. I read it once, probably in the early 90s, and have not read it since. It's got another great cover, and this one is a fold-out cover. That one's another really cool fold-out cover there. So Conan the Rebel by Poul Anderson. Yeah, I'm interested in reading this one again. And I can't remember. Did Poul Anderson did he do any other Conan novels? Did he do anything for Tor? I think some of these Bantam books at least were reprinted. They might have all been reprinted by Tor. Or at least some of them were. I know this one was reprinted a few times. You'll find Conan the Rebel with a few different covers. But that was the Bantam set of books. And from there, I think in the 1980s, after this set of books was done, there was another set of illustrated Conan books that was done by Ace, I think, that were around the same time as these, from the late 70s to the early 80s. But then we get that long series of Tor Conan novels. And that just lasted forever, it seemed like. Those went on. And then that set of books that was edited by L. Sprague de Camp, the original set, went out of print. And for a long time in the 90s, a dark time for Conan, you couldn't get new editions of Robert E. Howard's original Conan stories. It was just all pastiche. But this set of books is kind of cool. I will have to read them again. So this set of books, it looks worth revisiting. And I probably won't be able to do it this Sumerian September, unfortunately, but sometime in the future I will. It's an interesting set of books. And I guess that's all I have for today. I will catch you next time.